You want to get this thing going?
Yeah, let me just start the tape and slate it. So you'll hear a crack here in a second.
Okay, and I'll essentially, do the intro, and we'll be off to the races.
Right on. All right. I'm set on my end.
All right. Check 1, 2, check. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special interview episode of Media Monarchy. My name's James Evan Pilato, and I am your host and webmaster of the show and website, MediaMonarchy.com. And I'm so happy today to have the guest on the line that we have for you. He's someone who, for me, has been a big inspiration for MediaMonarchy.com. That's the simplest way I can put it. His name is Richard Andrew Grove. He's currently the editor-in-chief of Tragedy and Hope magazine, and that's at tragedyandhope.com. But prior to this current project, Richard invested over 6 years reading over 600 books to better understand our non-elected rulers. Now, before that, Richard was a corporate whistleblower, bringing to light more than 3 years ago that companies like AIG were defrauding investors. Does that sound familiar? But lastly, way back at the beginning, Richard worked on the 98th floor of the North Tower at the World Trade Center and was present on the morning of 9/11 to witness the events. So his odyssey of discovery spans the last 8 years, ever since he had the misfortune to learn that the world he occupied was, in truth, unlike anything we had ever been taught about. So Richard's journey gives us, I think, something really special, because Richard's not here just to hear himself talk, and neither am I. We're here to try and cut a critical line of thought directly through the maze and leave you guys with all the tools you need to see 9/11 and our world for what it is. And when we see that, we'll all be better prepared to take constructive action and elevate the game. Richard Grove, welcome to MediaMonarchy.com.
James, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here and a longtime listener of your excellent podcast. Great work, buddy.
Thanks so much, man. So it's September 10th, 2009. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and you are on the other side of the country. What, put quite simply, brought the two of us together to be still talking about the events of 9/11 when so many people seem to just want to put it aside?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I'm still learning about what happened that day, in addition to the history behind the things that made the events happen that day. And when I got into producing media, I started out with a piece called Project Constellation, which was like a 2-hour MP3 explaining the whistleblowing that I did and what I've discovered through that. And it was basically to hand over these facts to people who I felt were responsible researchers and responsible, talk show hosts, and to say, look, here's all these things that tie into this 9/11 problem that you guys are talking about, but no one's mentioning these key facts, these key figures, these key corporations. So it was more my trying to throw the message over the wall and expecting somebody else to do something with it. And what I learned from putting that recording out was that the people that I had idolized as, truthers or truth leaders or the godfathers of the truth movement had no interest in looking into these corporations or these personalities, characters behind the different entities that were perpetrating and profiting from 9/11. So in going through that experience, it's like, all right, I need to get this information out in a more coherent way, and I created the podcast, which was 9/11 Synchronicity. And you may have heard that at one point, but it was kind of an odyssey and a journey that takes people through the stream of consciousness. And what I was looking for out of that was to inspire other people to create their own media, to do their own research, and to bring original ideas and new research and connections out to the public. And I got to a point where I was like, it's really irresponsible of me to continue leading people on until I do a lot more homework and really broaden my horizons and get some real answers, because I wasn't interested in using fear to propagate the information I knew that people needed and they wanted, and that they're unwitting to all these scams. But I needed to lose the fear myself. I needed to lose that panic that comes from not understanding. And that's where I kind of started to sit back and say, look, maybe everything I was taught, maybe all my education left out a couple convenient facts. And in those pieces of blind spot, those voids, there could be something there that's, invisibly controlling us. And that's where you get into, research on our non-elected leaders.
So I first became familiar with you when I heard Project Constellation by way of Maria Heller of the Maria Heller Show, and that's MERIA.net. She was, I believe, the first person to play what I kind of refer to Project Constellation in a way as a sort of message in a bottle, that you're putting it out there and hoping that good, responsible people will get it and spread it to the world. Maria Heller was the first to do that, and in a way, seemingly one of the few and only to get your story out. I first heard Project Constellation, and it gave me a lot to think about. So when you then followed it up a few months later with starting the 9/11 Synchronicity podcast, I don't know if you were being tongue-in-cheek there. I listened to every episode of 9/11 Synchronicity, and it's that really made me want to start the radio show of Media Monarchy. I had started the website, appropriately enough, the first posting is September 11th, 2005 is when I started MediaMonarchy.com. It wasn't until just over a year later that I began the radio show here at the Portland Radio Authority. Your show was, in a way, I think, the inspiration, and that's what you're talking about, and it almost has a sort of DIY kind of punk ethic of showing you, in a way that I think this is a book, this could, our band could be your life, that this is something that you can do yourself. With the media, the tools are available, and it was someone like you who was always very well spoken and made so much sense and wasn't there really pushing an agenda or a product or fear. It was a newer, smarter, more kind of coherent and cogent way to look at things and do some research. So both those things were a huge inspiration to me. So again, I just like having you here on the line right now to say thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and I'm really proud of the fact that you were one of the people that took the initiative that I kind of put out there. And I said at the end of Project Constellation, there needs to be an independent media organization, a network that brings the best of these different authors and academics and activists and filmmakers all together into one place. And because none of us can do it alone, and none of us can cover all these facts by ourselves, and none of us have all of the answers, but together we all know what's going on, and we just need to drop our egos and say, look, we have a couple things that we agree on, and one of those things is that tomorrow we can do a better job than we've been doing today, and that things can definitely be better than the way they've been given to us in the status quo. The status quo does not empower us. So I think it benefits all of us to ask credible questions and do your own homework and find answers and share them with each other. So that's what the current Project Tragedy and Hope is all about. But to take a step back into what actually got me out of the sheepleness. I mean, when I worked in corporations, I basically had been trained and conditioned the whole life, when I was growing up, going through school, get good grades, be an honest person. And so you go out in the world and you do that, and to get the things you want, you need to go earn some money. So I got into a profession that was very lucrative, and the clients that I had were the largest financial institutions in the world.